This is Tim Albright with AVNation with an AVNation special previewing the AVNetwork Nation event. Happens December 10th, and with me is Gabi Shriki, Vice President at Valens. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
Gabi is going to be joining me on my session, the 31 Flavors of AV over IP. I picked that for a couple of different reasons. First of all, there are a number of different technologies. But in my research and in our reporting here at AVNation, but also with the folks at Future and System Contractors News, there's not one solution, right? There's not one. Gabi references and Valens references. There's not one silver bullet. I would say that there's not one flavor that fits everyone, right? So Gabi, really quickly before we head too deeply into this, why do you guys say that there's not one silver bullet, one solution for you guys?
So I think it's very important for the audience and the people in joining this panel and the audience to understand that there is no single AV over IP technology that solves the problems you will encounter and addresses the requirements that your customer will bring. The AV over IP is a very generic term for any audio and video distribution over the IP network. That could be an H.264, 265. Could be a Zoom and Team type of a codec. It could be a higher quality codec like the NVX or STVOE product. So as you understand now, it's not a single technology, therefore not a single interoperable codec that can work in between those different technologies. So product from one vendor won't necessarily talk to a product from another vendor. And the other problem that we often see when trying to deploy AV over IPs is the complexity of making sure that your audio video fits into the existing IP network that you already have in your organization. Oftentimes it's not the case, and you will need to make sure that you either install a dedicated audio video network just for that, or you have to have certain considerations, certain actions to ensure quality of service for your audio video data. So it's very complicated compared to simple technologies like HDMI or HDBaseT.
Yeah, absolutely. But if we were having this conversation a year ago, right, there would be conversations about what is the impact of the network, what is the impact in the classroom, and what is the impact in the boardroom.
Yes.
However, we have lived through 2020. We have lived through the COVID-19 pandemic. That has changed the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. That has changed the conversation not only for AV over IP, but also for collaboration tools. 6-9 months ago, Zoom wasn't a verb. It is now, right? And it has undoubtedly become the Kleenex, the default word, as people say, for video collaboration. Talk for a second about the impact of this pandemic and what it's had on the AV over IP, not just in the AV over IP infrastructure in corporate and education, but also over the overall market of AV over IP.
So COVID-19 accelerated some of the trends that we already started to see over the last few years. So working from anywhere, that was a term that we were phrasing many times. But the COVID-19 really forced us all to reorganize our lives differently. And in the past, when you looked at using Teams or Zoom or any other software collaboration platform, it wasn't the case that you necessarily even turn on the video. You would settle just for the audio. So definitely COVID-19 helped tremendously in that respect to make Zoom and Teams a more, I would say, usable, more friendly for us and a necessity for us. So now no one doubts why we need that, and no one is really hesitating to turn on the video and so on. And that is going to change the way I believe AV over IP deployment is going to happen, definitely in places where Zoom and Teams are commonly used. So corporate, some government agencies, places where people are already having a user in Teams or a Zoom user, and they will use that. The cost performance ratio using Teams or Zoom is by far favorable over a dedicated encoder, decoder, hardware encoder, decoder that are out there. You can't really compete with almost free Team or Zoom license. So what I think we'll see is that within the room, people will continue to use HDMI, DisplayPort, HD-based for the small scale point-to-point and small scale distribution, because the cost performance ratio is great there. And whenever they will need to go outside of the room, they can use the Zoom and Teams in order to get there. In most cases, we are no longer looking to collaborate with a peer next door or maybe in the next building. We actually collaborating with someone in a different city or a different country or a continent. So we have to go through these type of cloud-based platforms like the Zoom and Teams in order to maintain the collaboration level we need. So I believe it will have a tremendous impact on the AV over IP market overall, specifically in corporate. And people need to be aware of that and take advantage of these platforms.
Absolutely. Gabi, if somebody, we're going to see you on December 10th. You're going to join me for our panel here. But if somebody wants to connect with you or with HD-based between now and then, how do they do that?
So go online, www.valens.com or hdbased.org. Those places have a lot of information to share with you.
Very good, Gabi Shriki from Valens. Thank you so much. For us, for AVNation, go register. You can hang out with me and Gabi for an hour on December 10th. Go to avnetworknation.com, avnetworknation.com. Register for the December 10th event. Get yourself 4.75 CTSRUs. In the meantime, you also be able to hang out with Megan Dutta as she does 2 panels and a number of other really great keynotes and a happy hour actually at the end of the night. So check all that out and more at avnetworknation.com, avnetworknation.com.